Greetings to all. Welcome to CEC lecture. The topic that we shall deliberate on is International Human Solidarity Day. In this lecture, as we explain the significance of International Human Solidarity Day and discuss aspects of 2005 World Summit that took place from 14 to 16 September at United Nations headquarters in New York, we shall elaborate on Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals, their significance, achievements in the concerned areas, and most important, the need for international human solidarity for future challenges. International Human Solidarity Day is observed every year on 20th December. Now, once again, reading the inputs with respect to the aims of observance and celebration of International Human Solidarity Day from UN.org, that this day celebrates unity in diversity throughout the world and serves a reminder to governments to respect their commitments to international agreements and raise public awareness. International Human Solidarity Day reiterates the importance of solidarity in removing poverty. As we all know that there are several initiatives with respect to any international observance. As we talk about International Human Solidarity Day, there are initiatives such as establishment of the World Solidarity Fund to eradicate poverty and the proclamation of International Human Solidarity Day. The concept of solidarity, as we are talking about, we must understand that this concept of solidarity was promoted as being crucial in the fight against poverty and in the involvement of all relevant stakeholders. As we talk about International Human Solidarity Day, Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals become very crucial with respect to getting governments' commitments to international agreements, getting governments' agreement with respect to celebrating unity in diversity, and above all, reiterating the importance of solidarity in removing poverty. We all know that the Stockholm Conference 1972 was the first step towards getting environmental concerns on the discussion forums of the global agenda. It resulted in the Stockholm Declaration, which presented principles and action plan containing recommendations for the environment policy. The United Nations Environment Programme was set up in 1972 to serve as a catalyst in developing and coordinating the environmental focus with respect to programs of other organizations. The Earth Summit in the similar line in 1992. This was a direct consequence of the Brundtland Commission report held in Rio de Janeiro. The result of the conference were the following documents: Framework Convention on Climate Change, Convention on Biological Diversity, Statement on Forest Principle, the Rio Declaration, Agenda 21. Now, as we are talking about the need to have solidarity with respect to international commitments, the need to observe and celebrate unity and diversity, and above all, creating awareness about poverty alleviation, both Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals and the issue of sustainable development become very important to understand. Sustainable development, a very significant concept, that is development which meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. When we look at the definition of sustainable development given from the Brundtland Commission in the report that was a very popular report, Our Common Future, 1987. That is, sustainable development calls for concerted efforts towards building an inclusive, sustainable and resilient future for people and planet. Now, there are three core elements of sustainable development. What are they? Economic growth, social inclusion and environmental protection. So, from economic growth, social inclusion and environmental protection forming the pillar of sustainable development, we see that how these very pillars imply that problems of global governance can be solved better by factoring in solidarity. Environment sustainability, that is, we must attempt to prevent the nature from being used as an inexhaustible source of resources. We all must strive to ensure the protection of nature and rational use of the environment. Social sustainability with the focus towards gender equality, development of people, communities, fairly distributed quality of life, somewhere implies that solidarity is important. It is integral to take the governance agenda forward. Then in the same light, economic sustainability, that is economic growth that generates wealth for all without harming the environment. Now, when we try to understand issues with respect to sustainable development, issues concerning inequitable growth of national economies, primarily that we refer in international relations as the North-South divide. The countries of the North are rich, whereas the South are not. Then loss of biodiversity, climate change. Now, all these issues of sustainable development demand solidarity, demand a commitment towards the ethos of international human solidarity, that is, namely, there must be mutual agreement to act in unison to cater to the problem. We all know that International Human Solidarity Day tries to bring awareness with respect to poverty alleviation. Now, poverty alleviation has an important link with respect to Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals. Let us understand the Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals. Millennium Development Goals, they are the 8 international development goals that were established following the Millennium Summit of the United Nations in 2000. Following the adoption of the United Nations Millennium Declaration, they were said to be achieved by the year, that is 2015. Millennium Development Goals were time bound. Millennium Development Goals were quantified targets for addressing extreme poverty in its many dimensions, that is income poverty, hunger, disease, lack of adequate shelter, exclusion, while promoting gender equality, education, environmental sustainability. They were also basic human rights, that is rights of each person on the planet to health, education, shelter, security. In June 1992, at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, more than 178 countries adopted Agenda 21. That was what was Agenda 21? A comprehensive plan of action to build global partnership for sustainable development to improve human lives and protect the environment. Member states unanimously adopted Millennium Declaration at the Millennium Summit in September 2000 at United Nations headquarters in New York. The summit led to elaboration of 8 Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs, that is with the aim to reduce poverty by 2015. Now, when we talk about Millennium Development Goals, eradicating extreme hunger and poverty, achieving universal primary education, promotion of gender equality and empowering women, reduce child mortality, improve maternal health, combat HIV, AIDS, malaria, other diseases, ensure environmental sustainability, develop a global partnership for development was the important Millennium Development Goals. Now, as we look in the contemporary times, that what have been the achievements of Millennium Development Goals? Once again, presenting to you some facts from UN.org, some quantitative inputs, that is more than halving the number of people living in extreme poverty to 836 million in 2015 from 1.9 billion in 1990. Gender parity in primary schools is majority of countries, and a fall of 45% in the maternal mortality ratio worldwide. These are some of the important facts that we collected from UN.org with respect to achievement of Millennium Development Goals. At the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development Rio Plus 20 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in June 2012, member states adopted the outcome document, and the outcome document, The Future We Want, in which they decided inter alia to launch a process to develop a set of sustainable development goals to build upon Millennium Development Goals and to establish the United Nations high-level political forum on sustainable development. 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, that is, it was adopted by United Nations member states in 2015. It provided a shared blueprint for peace, prosperity for people and the planet now and into the future. Sustainable Development Goals, as we are trying to understand from Millennium Development Goals, the transition towards Sustainable Development Goals, there were a set of 17 goals and 169 targets were aimed at resolving global, social, economic and environmental problems. Now, we must point out that the new Sustainable Development Goals replace the Millennium Development Goals which were adopted in 2000, aiming to incorporate almost every aspect of human life. While MDGs, again trying to draw a distinction. What is the distinction between Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals? Millennium Development Goals were focused only on 8 goals, 21 targets and 63 indicators. Sustainable Development Goals include 17 goals with 169 targets. The 17 sustainable goals, which were an urgent call for action by all countries developed and developing in a global partnership, that is, ending poverty and other deprivations, must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health, education, reduce inequality and spur economic growth, all while tackling climate change and working to preserve our oceans and forests. Sustainable Development Goals are also known as global goals. They were adopted, as we just pointed out, at the United Nations in 2015 as a universal call to action, to end poverty, to protect the planet and ensure by 2030 all people enjoy peace and prosperity. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals are integrated. Action in one area, that is, will impact, it will affect outcomes in others, and that development must balance social, economic and environmental sustainability. Now, what were the goals? Goal 1, to end poverty in all its form everywhere. Goal 2, to end hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Goal 3, to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Goal 4, to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Goal 5 is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Goal 6, to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Goal 7, to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy for all. Goal 8, to promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, decent work for all. Goal 9, to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. Goal 10, to reduce inequality within and amongst countries. Goal 11, to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient and sustainable. Goal 12, to ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Goal 13, to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Goal 14, to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas and marine resources for sustainable development. Goal 15, to protect, restore and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystem, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification and halt and reverse land degradation and halt biodiversity loss. Goal 16, to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, build effective, accountable and inclusive institutions at all levels. Goal 17, to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. Now, as we try to understand the Millennium Development Goals, the achievements, the Sustainable Development Goals, the elaborate 17 Sustainable Development Goals, human solidarity is very essential, as it is pointed out also at several academic and global governance forums that international human solidarity, it is important for 2030 agenda for development. International Human Solidarity Day, a day that aims to give awareness to the public about the need to recognize the importance of solidarity. We all know that we are living a world which is global, a world wherein one part of the place is connected to the other, a world wherein the local is connected to the global. So, in that world, to look after ecology, to look after issues like desertification, climate change, to work towards peaceful, inclusive society, there is a need for commitment to work together for the betterment of all. There is a need for solidarity, as we can say, as the goal 17 of Sustainable Development Goals also says, to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize global partnership for sustainable development. It is essential then. When we talk about International Human Solidarity Day, as we just observed from our discussion of Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals, this day keenly understands the importance of the significance of human solidarity, and that is this human solidarity can be an important factor with respect to improving the chances of global unity. Now, we all know, dear learners, that with respect to reducing inequalities within and amongst countries, with respect to the need to promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, with respect to gender equality, with respect to a modern energy which is affordable, reliable, sustainable to all, as the sustainable development goals stand for. This idea of solidarity to give us chance to global unity is very essential. So therefore, when we talk about the observance and the celebration of International Human Solidarity Day, its importance for Agenda 2030 for development becomes very significant. And this is why it is essential that we must try to understand the idea of solidarity, the concept of international human solidarity, and above all, the aims and the objectives of the International Human Solidarity Day right from 2005 World Summit that took place 14 to 16 September at United Nations headquarters in New York, and with reference to contemporary times, that there is a need to celebrate unity in diversity. There is a need to reaffirm commitments towards global unity, towards working together to respect international agreements and commitments, and above all raising public awareness about the importance of solidarity in removing poverty. We all know that we are living in a world wherein globalization has led to people, countries getting together. With the rise of technological revolution, with the onset of communication revolution, advances and innovation thereof, world today is connected to each other. Now, in this process of world being connected, there are challenges also. There are critiques that often point out that how the idea of more jobs, more opportunities, more economic growth, more revenue and more profit that globalization is often associated with has also led to issues concerning poverty, ecology, environment, amongst others. And therefore, we must look at avenues to rework the balance between countries with respect to the issues concerning inequities and removing poverty. International Human Solidarity Day becomes very significant in this regard, reiterating the importance of solidarity in removing poverty. Now, we all know global governance demands commitment towards issues that have a common bearing with respect to our collective future. We all know that we are living in a world where security has witnessed new dimensions, from pandemics to various other dimensions like technology, like ecology. These issues and threats cut across borders, and therefore there must be a certain commitment on part of respective nation states with respect to international agreements. International Human Solidarity Day then really works to the advantage with respect to reminding the governments of their commitments to international commitments. A firm reminder with respect to commitments to international agreements is of great use with respect to our collective future, with respect to issues concerning humanity. As UN Chief Antonio Guterres has also said in his remarks that solidarity is humanity, solidarity is survival. This shows the significance of not only solidarity but the important message International Human Solidarity Day being observed and celebrated on 28th December, that this day has the significant message for the humanity, for the polity and for global governance at large. And above all, when we try to look at the global apparatus, when we try to look at the global architecture, international organizations like United Nations, it is the spirit of human solidarity that guides the principle of UN, and it is the principle and the spirit of human solidarity that presents not only international organizations like United Nations but the people at large the solution to cater to any crisis of the contemporary time, wherein solidarity becomes the key link to factor in global unity. Solidarity becomes the key pillar to factor in joint action. This is why International Human Solidarity Day, observed every year on 28th December, is a very significant occasion with a very important message. The annual Unity Day of United Nations, celebrating our unity and diversity, reminding the governments to respect commitments to international agreements, and above all, in getting the work together, in amplifying all the efforts and support with respect to poverty alleviation. We hope the lecture presented to you significant inputs with respect to significance of International Human Solidarity Day, importance of solidarity with respect to issues of global governance, and a deeper analysis with respect to poverty alleviation with the focus on Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals. We hope and look forward to positive, encouraging feedback from you all. Thank you very much.